Hey guys, Jessica here. So today we're going to talk about something that has a lot of moms really worried about feeding their baby, and that is this baby bottle class action lawsuit. So Avent and Dr. Brown's, the makers of these bottles, which these are two of the most popular bottles on the market, I would say a vast majority of babies have used these bottles at some point. Those manufacturers are being sued right now. And there is a lot of clickbait surrounding this, and a lot of moms are mistaking this class action lawsuit for a recall. This is not a recall, this is a class action lawsuit. And we're going to talk about this in very practical terms because what I am seeing as a lactation professional is a lot of moms who are really scared of what to do. They don't understand, what is this lawsuit about? Why are these baby bottle makers being sued? Did they do something wrong? And even more importantly, what on earth do you do right now to feed your baby in this moment? Because there are lots of limitations around what you can do with certain babies, certain finances. This is a really crappy situation for parents. It's really scary, but let's talk about it. So first thing I want you to know, a lawsuit does not mean that a company has actually done anything wrong. You can sue anybody for any reason. This has to work its way through the courts. The courts are going to be who decides whether this company did something or did not do something that is worthy of, punitive actions being taken against them. Until that happens, this could be a junk lawsuit. And honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards, yes, this is a good thing because we're going to bring attention to an area of infant feeding that, we're not talking about, and parents should be given informed consent when they choose to use baby feeding items. You should know how to use them and what the risks are. That's not really happening. I'm going to agree with the law firm that's suing them on that. But the issue here, what they're actually claiming is that BPA, which is a chemical that was found in plastic, it was almost like a synthetic estrogen is how it acted. We've banned that from baby bottles. Baby bottles are not supposed to have BPA. So, and this happened years ago. This has been a long time. I want to say it was like 2010, 2012 is what I was reading as when it was officially banned. But even before that, it wasn't popular. Like BPA bottle or BPA free bottles are what parents were told to look for and had been for several years. So BPA, bad. We don't want BPA in your baby's bottles. So most bottle manufacturers actually label their bottles as BPA free. What this lawsuit is alleging is that the use of the term BPA free has given consumers the idea that plastic in your baby bottles and your baby feeding supplies are inherently safe. And what this lawsuit is saying is that they're not. We're talking about microplastics here. So plastics shed microplastics. It's not unique to baby bottles. There is no such thing as a plastic that is not going to shed microplastics. It is a concern because microplastics are not great for us. But we have found microplastics in placentas. We have found microplastics in breast milk. So before somebody goes and thinks that, if they had just fed their baby directly at the breast, their baby would never have been exposed to this and gets in that headspace where they think they've done something harmful. Unfortunately, the damage was done probably long before any of us who are currently feeding babies and raising babies were even alive. That this has been going on for a long time. Does that mean we should ignore it? No, it turns out that there are practices in which we can modify how we use baby bottles and what we're doing with them in order to maybe make them a little bit safer. So the biggest concern here is that a lot of people are heating up milk in plastic bottles. So what they did is there was this fun little study, and I will link the Forbes article that had the study that I felt like was the easiest to read. It felt like the least biased clickbait that I could find. And I've read a lot of articles about this over the weekend, looking for this information for you. So I'm just going to link that one below. Do I know for sure that it is like the safest source for you to get your information? No, but it's the one that I feel like is least likely to send you into a spiral and felt the most practical in terms of explaining what this lawsuit actually was. So they don't like the BPA free label. They think it's misleading us. And then the use of the bottles is potentially dangerous. What they found is that if you put room temperature water in here and shake it up, you get a couple 100,000 microplastics shedding, which is a lot. If you put it at 158 degrees, which is the temperature that we actually recommend that you heat the water to when you mix it with powdered infant formula. If you have 158-degree water in here and shake it all around, you get millions of microplastics. So that's also something that catches my attention. Like, that's a very curious study, because formula companies are forever trying to get that recommendation removed. Because if we acknowledge the risks of powdered infant formula, which is that it's not sterile, and we really need for it to be mixed with hot water that's hot enough to kill the salmonella, the Cronobacter, and the E. coli in the powdered formula, which is not unique to powdered formula. All powdered foods like that are good transmitters of these bacteria, good growing host. At 158 degrees, we can kill that bacteria, and then that reduces our risk when we're formula feeding. We'll get into that in another video. But if we mix up the hot water, we're actually adding more plastic to the bottle. So that is a concern. So what does that also mean that we should be concerned about when you put it in your dishwasher? When you put it in one of these steam sterilizers, if you have ever worked with me or you've been around on my channel for a while, you would know that I think steam sterilizers are absolutely terrible inventions. They are warping pump parts. They are destroying baby bottles. I see a lot of really damaged, prematurely worn stuff from steam sterilizers. So this to me says plastic doesn't belong in a steam sterilizer, because if we're putting plastic in a steam sterilizer where it's easily getting up into the high 100s, over 200 degrees, we are shedding microplastics. We are deteriorating these bottles that we're using to feed our babies. So the plastic always has an inherent risk. Even at room temperature, it's a risk. But when we heat it up, we are greatly magnifying the risk. So that is risk mitigation strategy one. We're going to reduce the heat. If you are worried about this lawsuit and you want to be able to use your plastic baby bottles, your plastic pump parts, because, you know, here's a breast pump flange. The risk of this plastic is the same as the risk of this plastic. This bottle is typically going to be used to pump into. This bottle is going to be used to feed. It doesn't magically become dangerous when we put a nipple on it. The plastic is a concern, and I don't have a plastic-free pump to recommend for you. It just doesn't exist. So we're going to deal with reality, which is always my thing, is let's deal with things that we can actually deal with. And, you know, pump manufacturers, maybe you could start looking into some non-plastic items for us. Like, just maybe throwing that one out there. But maybe we stop heating up these bottles. So maybe we go to hand washing. Is that a little bit of pain in the butt? Yeah, it kind of is, but I can teach you how to wash pump and baby bottle parts so that it's not a huge pain in the butt. However, if you can't do it, you can't do it. And sometimes we have to say, like, there are inherent risks. Microplastics are everywhere in our environment. So if this is the difference between you feeding your baby and not feeding your baby, I'm going to go with feeding your baby. Do I love it? No, I don't like that this is a situation we find ourselves in. I really don't like that there's not an easy solution, but it is what it is. So we could stop heating the plastics. You know, if you have a steam sterilizer, go ahead, unplug it. Maybe let's just be done with that. If your baby needs you to sterilize things, let's find a better way to sterilize. There are cold water sterilization methods, which is really popular in the UK. I actually really wish it would catch on here in the US. You can use very diluted bleach water. That is an option. That's actually one that I use when I need to wash like large quantities of pump parts, because with all the testing I do, with all the storage, things have to be washed routinely. So sometimes we have a larger batch than what's practical. You could use a UV sterilizer. Is a UV sterilizer a concern for this? I mean, yes, UV can cause plastic to degrade, but from what I can tell from the research, UV is going to be far less damaging than heat sterilization. So if you really need to sterilize, and for most healthy full-term babies, you don't need to sterilize, then go ahead and put it in a UV sterilizer. These are easy to use options. Alternatively, we can go with a glass bottle, and there are lots of different glass bottles on the market. This is one that I specifically want to call out to you because this is the Mila's Keeper. This is the only bottle that I am aware of on the market that is going to be actually practical for people to use. If you are using wide neck bottles, let's say that you're using the Avon, let's say that you're using the Lancino nipples, You can put them on a mealess keeper wide neck. Mealess keeper also makes a narrow neck. So my favorite nipples are actually the narrow neck, even flow balance. You can put them on this. But what's cool about this one is that if you are worried about microplastics related to shaking the milk specifically, whether you're mixing formula, whether you're mixing breast milk, whether you're heating breast milk, we're going to be shaking milk. I have not found a way to feed babies that doesn't involve shaking something at some point. This is a fully silicone lid. So this is a glass bottle, fully silicone lid. You can shake away to your heart's content. This is not going to have microplastics in it. Is this a cheap option? No, but for my moms who are out here who are like, I want no microplastics in my baby's bottle, that's the best I got for you. I do actually really like these bottles. They're really sturdy. I love the silicone sleeves that they come in. I do love these lids. They're actually much tighter than you would think. They do a really good job. My 4-year-old actually really likes to play with these. He does science experiments in them because you can see in the sleeve. So he thinks he's making potions. He's played with them. He's dropped them on our hard floor. They haven't broken. I've been a super huge fan of these. I would absolutely think that these are worth the investment, and they hold up really well. So that's definitely something to consider. There are other bottles because I do have moms who've reached out and they're like, well, shoot, I want a glass bottle, but I can't do a glass bottle because my baby's daycare says no glass, because there is this conception that glass bottles are very easy to break. I will tell you, they are not easy to break. They're actually far sturdier. I think it's way easier to destroy a plastic bottle than a glass bottle. So this is the Chico Duo. This is actually a plastic bottle with a glass lining. So this is going to reduce your microplastics because we don't have a plastic surface there. This could be a good option. I don't love this nipple, so we would have to look into some options for that. I'm actually going to link you over to Lactation Hub. I'm going to put a couple links down below in the video. Lactation Hub is a great company. They sell a lot of breastfeeding friendly bottles. They sell several glass bottle options, but they also have some information about nipple compatibility. So sometimes you can change the nipple that you're using on a bottle to be a little bit more breastfeeding friendly. But this is definitely an option for my moms who need that. Dr. Brown's actually makes glass bottles in their narrow neck. Those are still some of my favorite infant feeding bottles. Those are the ones that I actually recommend that moms have on hand. When you have a baby, like, have a Dr. Brown's narrow neck with a preemie nipple. That is typically going to be a good starting point to help a baby. Will it work for every baby? No, but it works for so many that it's a comfortable starting point. They're relatively accessible too. So you could just switch to glass for that. And then if you're doing that, what you would do is when you're heating up your bottle, take the plastic components out, which you're already not supposed to heat those up to begin with. Another alternative strategy, we could stop heating up baby's milk. Some babies will take their milk cold, straight from the fridge. They do not care. Some babies will take milk at room temperature. Other babies expect it to be 98.6 on the dot. What we can do with those babies who are maybe a little bit more persnickety, because again, we have to feed your baby, we can be worried about microplastics and still have to compromise to feed your baby, especially if your baby is like married to one particular bottle and is not caving. What we can do to help mitigate that risk is we just slowly back off on how we heat it. So today we heated the baby's preferential temperature. Maybe tomorrow we're aiming for just a few degrees lower. Give that a little bit of time, baby gets accustomed to it. Then we back it off just a little bit more again. Over the course of a couple weeks, we can likely get that down to room temperature, typically a little faster unless you have one of those really stubborn babies, which I've had one of those, so I feel ya. We can get the temperature demands down, so we can decrease it. You can stop using your steam sterilizers and your dishwashers today. It won't actually hurt you. I know it's more of a pain, but I will do a video for you next week. I will show you how to wash large quantities of bottle parts quickly, efficiently. There are ways that we can do this. A lot of times moms are using an inefficient wash routine. I have my wash routine down to a science because between the combination of my milk fat and the water we had in our last house, I really had to be careful how I was washing parts in order to make it work. So we'll do that next week. We'll have a big, here is the most efficient wash routine that is going to be easy to keep up with this, reduce those demands. And this isn't just for your baby bottles. I recommend this for your pump parts. You know, the dirty little secret that is if you stop using heat methods of cleaning your pumps, And your baby bottles, they're going to last longer. So do companies want us to know that? No, probably not, because companies make money when we have to replace things. So maybe we stop feeding their pockets and we start focusing on feeding our babies a little bit more safely. All in all, what I want you to take away from this is that this is a lawsuit that we don't know if it actually has merits. We don't know where things are at. We don't know what's going to happen with this. We haven't proven the companies have done anything wrong. They haven't labeled it as microplastic free. Did we understand these risks? No, maybe we didn't, because we live in a society that plastic has risks, yet we continue to use it all the time. But take a deep breath. Do not panic on feeding your baby. Let's make one small change in how we're using plastic baby bottles, if we can, and see just how impactful is it. Do you get used to it? Change takes time. When you change a routine, it is going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. So the first couple of days, they may feel pretty clunky. It may be like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. I'm miserable. I can't do this. Maybe give it a week. Maybe at a week, you're like, okay, I mean, it's not terrible. Maybe you and your partner need to renegotiate how to do things. Maybe if you have an older child, they could help you with washing some parts. Once I show you this wash routine next week, I promise you any child over that's tall enough to stand at the sink can probably wash pump and baby bottle parts correctly to help out with the family. Let's try making one small change, and let's try not letting clickbait and fear mongering get the best of us in this. Is this a concern? Yeah, it sounds like this is a concern. This sounds like this is an area where maybe a little bit of consumer education is good. Is this something that I want you to panic? Absolutely not. Let's not panic. I need you to focus on feeding your baby and to know that you're doing the best that you can. And let's just try one small thing, one small step, and let's see how that works. And we'll go from there. Maybe we'll get better products out of this. Maybe things will get safer. That is my hope. But I just need you to know that a lot of what you're seeing is clickbait. It's fear mongering, and it's doing its job. I have moms that are scared. So let's step back. Let's not let fear get the best of us. And let's go with it. So hopefully this helps answer your questions, give you some strategies that I think you can easily implement. And let me know your questions. If you are concerned about how to best feed your baby, what bottles might be best, you can always book a consult. I am happy to take a look at how your baby feeds with their current bottles. We can probably recommend a bottle that is in alignment with your baby's needs in terms of oral function and feeding needs. That also is maybe a little bit safer, maybe is a little bit better situation for what you want in terms of your infant feeding safety. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and happy pumping.